All right. Last week we started a short little mini-series about Judges. I want to let you guys know next week we are not going to be meeting here because we're going to have this church-wide family worship service led by me and Mark and Big John. It's going to be like kids and students and just all kinds of fun. And it's going to be up in the sanctuary 9:30 and 11. Okay? So make sure you come to that because it's going to be great. Where we are, what?
Do you have any spoilers? Like spoilers?
Yes, there will be preaching. All right. Can't tell you anything else than that because we're all about hype at the next level. So anyway, hey, what we're going to be doing today? What era are we in? It's kind of easy. Yeah, we're in the Judges era because we're in the book of Judges, right? So there's your emoji. If you guys are more inclined to the graphic arts like I am. I'm such a visual learner, y'all. I can't just look at text and paragraph. I gotta have pictures and pop-up books and colors. And that's how I operate, you know? If this was like some chart of just like the Judges there and all these things, man, no. Give me color, give me pictures. All right, so hey, fellas in the back, what we're doing, we're in the Judges era. This is what we're focused on, is transformed lives. So we're going to be talking about people over the next several weeks and different kind of character studies, character issues, things like that. So we're in the Judges era, and we're talking about transformed lives. And where we're going with this today is we're going to go to the very end of Judges. We're going to talk about the one that everybody knows and everybody thinks they know most about, is Samson. And where I want to start with this series is I want to start with the death of Samson. So then we can kind of work our way backwards and see how this final judge met his tragic end. All right, so Rhett, why don't you come on up here? We're going to be in Judges 16, 26 through 31. All right, so go ahead and turn there. You got your Bibles out. Judges 16, 26 through 31. And Rhett's going to read that for us. All right, in just a second. They're still flipping. Apparently, Judges are defined.
Tell us what you did.
It's on page 316 in the green Bible from the fireplace. Okay, Judges 16, 26 through 31. Here we go.
Samson said to the servant who held his hand, "Put me where I can feel the pillars that support the temple, so that I may lean against them." Now the temple was crowded with men and women. All the rulers of the Philistines were there and on the roof. And only about 3,000 men, women, and were watching Samson perform. Then Samson prayed to the Lord, "Sovereign Lord, remember me. Please God, strengthen me just once more and let me with one blow get revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes." Then Samson reached toward the 2 central pillars on which the temple stood. Bracing himself against them, his right hand on one, his left hand on the other, Samson said, "Let me die with the Philistines." Then he pushed with all of his might, and down came the temple on the rulers and all the people. Thus he killed many more when he died than when he lived. Then his brothers and his father's whole family went down to get him. They brought him back and buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol.
Yeah.
In the tomb of Manoah, his father. He had led Israel 20 years.
All right, thank you. So, this is the very end of Samson's story. And just to catch you up to where this is, what Samson is doing is he's judging Israel. He gets captured by the Philistines after he reveals the secret of his strength. They gouge out his eyes. They put him in prison. He's grinding grain, all of this stuff. And then what happens is they bring him out to make a mockery of him, to perform. He's kind of like their little court jester now, the blind strong man that is now suddenly helpless. He's juggling. I don't know how you juggle when you're blind, but that's what he's doing. All right, and so then he gets this moment where he is in the temple of Dagon, which is a pagan god whom they worship by burning their children in the fire. All right, so he's in this temple. There's thousands of people in this temple. 3,000 of them are just on the roof looking down in. And so Samson pushes the pillars, the whole thing collapses, and he kills a ton of Philistines, thus beginning the process of God removing the Philistine influence in Israel. Okay? That's where all of this happens. So let's pray and let's see what in the world all this means and has to do with us. All right? Here we go. Daddy, we love you. We thank you for your word and we thank you for this space. I pray that you clear the air, clear our minds, so that we can focus in on the transformative power that is in the living Word of God. We love you, we trust you, and we anticipate meeting you today. In your name, amen. All right, so Samson is the one depicted in art as like this Herculean, incredible Hulkian, King Leonidasian guy, right? He's just, like, whenever you think of Samson, don't you just think of like this like 7 foot tall, ripped dude that looks like he should be a bodybuilder, right? Is that kind of how we picture him? Me too. But then as I'm reading this story and as I was studying this week, this idea got me that like when he was with Delilah and they're trying to figure out the secret of his strength, why would they be confused about that if he was a giant, jacked Hercules guy? He might have been a pretty normal looking dude that all of a sudden can tear buildings apart with his bare hands. You know? So whenever we see art of Samson, he's always like, dang, that guy must be doing paleo. You know? It's like he has this look about him, this stigma about him, and he's also this hero in our minds, you know, from Bible school and VBS. It's like, Samson is a strong man going to kill the Philistine. You know, it's something that we like him. But we don't know him that well. So I want to give you a profile of Samson. One of the first things you want to know about Samson, if you look back in the story, he's a Nazarite. Now, what a Nazarite is it's kind of like this special classification of God follower. It's not like a race. A Nazarite's not a race. It's it's a dedicated person that has certain restrictions on them for a period of time. One of those is they don't cut their hair. Okay, that's why Samson has like these killer dreads by the end of the story. Okay, so they don't cut their hair, they don't touch alcohol, and they're not allowed to touch dead bodies. Okay, so those are kind of the 3 prohibitions of a Nazarite. It's a time that they are dedicated to God. It's kind of like when we fast. We're not going to touch food for this amount of time so that we can pray and seek God. So a Nazarite is set aside as you're not going to cut your hair, you're not going to touch dead animals and become unclean so that you can't worship anymore, and you're not going to partake of any alcoholic beverages so that you can be filled with the Spirit instead. All right, so Samson was set apart from his mother's womb as a Nazarite for his entire life. Okay, so that's what I want to frame this around. That's why we kind of think of him as like, hey, this is a good guy. He is a godly man. He's set apart from birth. He's got all of these things that are going for him. But if you know the story at all, you quickly go, that guy sounds a lot like me. He committed to this and then completely failed at this. And then it's like, that's how I feel a lot. It's like I say I'm going to do something, and then I don't. I say I'm going to read my Bible every day in 2016, and I'm still stuck in January. Y'all, like, I'm bad at that kind of stuff, you know, but we make these commitments and these promises, and then we just find out that we just can't do them, and then we feel horrible about it. Man, that's Samson. All right, Samson's not a hero, though. We look at Samson as this hero, this big, strong guy who saves Israel from the Philistines, and then the kings come in. He's not a hero. He's not even close. If you read the story of Samson, it's only like 4 chapters. You get a pretty good overlook of this guy's character. You see that he's selfish. A lot of times it's, I want, so I will take. And he's probably banking on his strength for some of that. He doesn't honor his parents very well at all. In fact, he kind of throws them under the bus, and he's like, I want that girl, go get her for me. And they're like, no, he's like, I just picture him throwing this tantrum. So he doesn't honor his parents. He touches a dead animal. And that's a problem, isn't it? Because he's a Nazarite. So when he touches dead animals, oh, hey, Mulan's on. I guess we're watching that today.
Can you sign out?
Let's go back. Are you watching Mulan without us? There's Samson again. Samson is the prequel to Mulan, if you didn't know that. A young Chinese girl who saves her country. Because he had long hair? I don't know. That's Samson. Anyway. So he's a Nazarite. Remember, he's not supposed to touch dead animals. One of the first feats of strength that he does, he grabs a lion and he rips it in half. So then there's a corpse that he created. He comes back later, there's a beehive and they're making honey. He digs in there and he eats the honey out of this corpse that he made. So he breaks that once. And then later on in the story, he kills 1,000 Philistines with what? Do you remember? The jawbone of a donkey. How do you get the jawbone of a donkey? It's dead animal, right? You don't just like go, hey, can I borrow that real quick? All right, here, let me put that back. No, it's a fresh jawbone. So he's breaking his vows, he's breaking his promises throughout his life. He touches these dead animals, which makes him completely ceremonially unclean, and he doesn't tell anybody about it. Because if he were to do that, there is this lengthy process of purification that he would have to go through. He'd have to go to the temple for something like 8 days to go through all these ritual bathings and cleansings and all of this stuff and be inspected by priests. And he's like, man, ain't nobody got time for that. There's this honey over in Gaza that I want to go to prom with, So he's got this focus. He's got eyes for only one thing, and he's like, I don't have time to fulfill my vows. I'm not going to really pay much attention to that whole going to church thing. I'm not dedicated. I want to go here. I want her. There's a girl that's got my attention. So that's one of the things about him. And he got so used to doing things his way that by the end of the story, man, he thought he was invincible. And that's what ultimately led to his downfall. In fact, in the NIV application commentary, it says this: no other deliverer in the book of Judges matches Samson's potential. Yet in spite of all these advantages, being a Nazarite, being strong, being very prominent, being young too, despite all these advantages and special attention, he accomplished less on behalf of his people than any of his predecessor deliverers. So if you look at the story of Judges, and you look at guys like Othniel, and you look at Ehud, you look at Deborah, you look at Shamgar, you look at all of these accomplished more than Samson ever did for the deliverance of his people. So he had all of this potential, all of these advantages, all of this stuff at his disposal. He squandered it and really did less than anybody before him. Samson, as a judge, it's kind of like ending a song on a minor note. You know what I mean? Or it's kind of like if you go, if you're up to bat, you strike out, bases loaded, last at bat of the game, you guys end up losing. He's the final inning, bases loaded, strikeout guy. Or Samson as a judge is kind of like when you go camping in an RV. It's like, hey, camping, come on. Or he's kind of like Michigan State tournament run. I mean, it's like that's not how you want to end your story. You're not ending the story well like this with Samson as a judge. Okay? Other things about him is he's characterized by lust. You just read that story, it's just like he is led by two things. One of those is his eyes, and one of those is something else on his body. All right? But remember, he's a Nazarite, so all of his vows, every time that he's talking about these Nazarite vows, they're replaced by what he sees. So you look in the story of Samson, and it always talks about what he sees. He saw, so he wanted. He noticed, so he wanted. He saw, so he followed. He followed what his eyes saw. He had all these vows, all this stuff about his character and the setup for his life, to have a successful life as a deliverer of Israel. But instead, he's like, that looks good, I want. That's kind of Samson. He's also characterized by revenge. And I never saw this until this week as I'm studying this, but this guy was vengeful. If you look in 14:19, this is after a story where he has this riddle about like killing a lion and all that. You don't have to turn there, I'm going to read it. 14:19, it says, he went down to Ashkelon. He struck down 30 of their men, stripped them of everything, and gave their clothes to those who explained the riddle, because that was the prize he promised. If you can solve this, I'll give you 30 new garments of clothes. But he doesn't have 30 garments of clothes, so he goes and kills guys and takes them and then gives those as the prize. But then this is the motivation. It says, burning with anger, he returned to his father's home. In the commentary I read, it said the act of killing the 30 men, which is no doubt a mighty achievement. 1 versus 30, and he comes out victorious, and the clothes are still in wearable condition. Think about that. It's motivated by Samson's anger and vengeance. The motive is not to deliver Israel from the Philistines or even to bring judgment on them. It only serves his purposes. And then if you look at 16:28, it says this. This is another story later on. It says, Samson prayed to the Lord, Sovereign Lord, remember me. Please, God, strengthen me just once more and let me with one blow get revenge on the Philistines for my 2 eyes. This is what read earlier. It's at the very tail end of Samson's life. And he starts out and says, Sovereign Lord. We're like, yes, finally he's coming around. Let me get revenge because they put my eyes out. That's the motivation for his prayer. That's the motivation for a lot of these feats of strength that we see in Samson's life, is it's vengeful. He wants to get revenge on the Philistines. He's not trying to deliver Israel. He's trying to save his reputation. This is about this prayer, it says the first line of this prayer raises expectations that perhaps finally Samson is genuinely turning to God in humility and proper faith. But the next two lines dash this. Samson is portrayed as repeatedly putting personal ambitions ahead of God's interests. There's virtually no difference between Samson and the Philistines with respect to seeking revenge. Rather than praying, "Oh God, let me deliver Israel," Samson's prayer is for personal revenge for his eyes. Self-interest dominates him to the end. So far we got this hero of Israel that we all loved to color when we were little, who's selfish, dishonors his parents, breaks his vows, is dominated by lust, is characterized by revenge, and then he's also characterized by apathy. Okay? And apathy is that, don't care, no big, whatever, I'm not going to be passionate about anything, I'd rather just stay middle of the road because then I can't fail and then I can't also be singled out. Apathy is that I just don't really care kind of attitude. And what's happening in the landscape of Israel right now at this time is that Israel itself is apathetic towards the thing of God. Samson's parents are apathetic towards the things of God. So then Samson himself becomes apathetic towards the things of God. Samson's story in Judges, in the cycle of all the Judges, is the only one where Israel does not cry out to God for help. They don't want to be delivered anymore. They want to just coexist. They want to keep the status quo. They don't want to ruffle any feathers. They don't want to take anybody off. They're content, just kind of, we'll make this work. And so if Samson is called on to lead Israel and deliver Israel, does he really have much motivation to want to do that if the people themselves don't want to be rescued? But the apathy goes further. We talked about this jawbone of a donkey. I want you just to notice this prayer though. Look at what he says here. With a donkey's jawbone, I've made donkeys of them. And we all know the other word for donkey. With a donkey's jawbone, I've killed 1,000 men. This is his song of victory after this happens. What do you notice about this prayer? I made donkeys of them. I killed 1,000 men. What's significant about that?
It's not like the power of God. It's just like
I did it. Yeah, I did it. I'm awesome. Look what I did. Y'all, check this out. Go like my photos. I killed these guys. Look at all these guys. Look at this donkey jawbone. Look at that's just me. I love myself. I put my picture on my shelf. Like this is all me. It's all about himself. And the thing about that, y'all, that I want you to understand is that Satan wants me to believe that I can do anything by myself. That is one of the things that he tries to convince us of, and I am convinced that here in Tulsa especially, that is such a thick temptation and such an easy thing to be convinced of, is that I can do anything by myself. I got this. I'm gonna go to Harvard Law when I'm 15. You know, like we have this, like we're gonna just pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. We're gonna make it happen. I'm gonna do this. I'm going to succeed. Look at my resume. We're going to do all of this stuff, and we don't need help. We don't need support. We don't submit it to God. It's just watch what I can do. Everybody pause and watch me. Watch me. It's like Samson, man. He's like, I got this. No matter what's in front of me, I got this. I don't need help. I want community, but only so much as it benefits me, not for anything else. Satan wants to convince us of that we can do anything by ourselves. And that may be the most tragic thing of all in this story, is that God was with Samson the entire time. But Samson doesn't even seem to be aware of God's involvement in his life. So the significance of Samson then is that he's really nothing that we want to emulate, because we all do struggle with some form of lust or revenge or apathy. I mean, we all have those bents toward us. So when we look at Samson, we're like, yeah, I can relate to that. I struggle with that too. My eyes dominate my brain. My passion is just it's not there. I'm like ho-hum about a lot of stuff. What's up with that? Or anytime anybody cuts you off on the road or cuts you off in the hallway, you're just like, we're all kind of dominated by that in some way, but I don't think that's where we want to stay. I don't know if we're a people that wants to be content, saying, yeah, I'm good not caring about anything the rest of my life. I'm good being ticked off anytime anybody does anything remotely annoying. I'm good, just letting my feelings dictate my actions. I don't know if we want to stay there. I don't think that's what we are. So the good news about this is that even though we're like Samson in a lot of ways, we're also like the story of Samson in a lot of ways, because even though we are characterized by many of the same things, the thing about the story of Samson is that the faithfulness of God is there despite all of this other stuff that he did. Despite breaking his vows, despite doing all of these things, despite being dominated by lust and revenge and apathy, the faithfulness of God rises to the surface in every single episode that you see in the story of Samson. See, for me, the faithfulness of God shows up in my life because what God did was He ensured that I saved myself for marriage, even though I was obsessed with dating in high school and college. Like, that was just one of those things that it dominated my perspective and my focus. Was like, I always had to be dating somebody. And no matter what, it'd be like, we could date for 6 months and be like, oh, let's break up with him by Monday. I'm like, all right, who's next? Come on. I can't be alone. I got to have somebody on my arm. I got to have something to do. Somebody's got to go to Chinese food with me. I got to go to prom with somebody. I ended up going to prom 5 times. That's how bad it was, right? I had to be with somebody. But God's faithfulness in the midst of that was that He ensured that I ended up saving myself for marriage even in that. Another example of that is like God's faithfulness shows up in the fact that I have 2 amazing kids that I am raising up who are loving the Lord right now. And that is despite the fact that I completely disregarded God in college. I turned my back on Him and I was like, I am this close to just being done. But now, God's faithfulness is shining through in my own children. That's just awesome stuff. See, God has been faithful. And in the story of Samson, several times, if you look, the most repeated phrase in there is it says, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon Samson, not because he deserved it, not because he did anything for that. That was God's faithfulness in the midst of Samson's failures. The Spirit of the Lord still came powerfully on Samson all these times over. And this is great. It says, man's extremity is God's opportunity. And in such words as were possible of Samson's Old Testament biographer, that sacred writer tells us that in Samson also, where sin abounded, grace did much more abound. Isn't that good? Where sin abounded. Getting drunk at a wedding feast, killing animals, touching dead bodies, just completely shirking his responsibilities as a Nazirite. Eventually even getting his hair cut, which was like another no-no. Even in that, even where his sin abounded, his selfishness, his disrespect, his apathy, his lust, his revenge, his pride, even when sin abounded, God's grace abounded all that much more. Then the quote continues, and that God's strength was made perfect in the day of Samson's weakness. Check this out. I want you to look at this weakness. TJ, you got 16:21? This is the weakness that we're talking about here. Verse 16, or chapter 16, verse 21. Just read, just 16:21.
When the Philistines,
Yeah.
When the Philistines seized him, gouged out his eyes, and took him down to Gaza, binding him with ropes and shackles, and set him in great prison.
That's fine. That's good. This is the weakness of Samson. This is how his story ends. His pride gets the best of him. They cut his hair off. He loses his strength. The Spirit of God leaves him. And he has no idea that he did. So the Philistines gouge out his eyes, put him in bronze shackles, which normally he would have been able to break. Set him to grinding grain on a millstone in a prison. How the mighty have fallen, right? This is the weakness where God shows himself strong. But see, the thing about verse 21 is that later on, in verse 28, Samson sort of yields himself to God, right? He prays, Sovereign Lord, if you would just strengthen me this one more time, let me do, like he does all that. He sort of yields himself to God finally at the end. Not completely, but he's starting to get there. And the thing about this, though, is that if you look at Matthew 6:33, it says, but seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. And here's what I want to challenge you guys with. If that's where we start, if that's where our lives go, if we stop being dominated by our own emotions, our own feelings, our own cravings, our own wants and desires, and we yield to the Lord right off the bat, we seek first God's kingdom, we seek first His righteousness. We start there. We start with pleasing God. We start with just yielding to God. We stop assuming that whatever we planned is going to actually be the trajectory of our life. And we say, you know what, God, this time, why don't you tell me what you want me to do? Why don't you lead me to the college you want me to go to? Why don't you lead me to the person you want me to be friends with? Why don't you lead me? Why don't you lead me? Why don't you lead me? If we start there, we seek first God's kingdom, God's righteousness, God's will, then we don't got to live in verse 21. Our story doesn't have to be like Samson's where, you know what, we've been going our own way and suddenly we're blinded and in prison and shackled and grinding grain for the rest of our days. If we start in the seek first, we don't end up in verse 21. So the unfortunate reality for Samson was that he was convinced of his own power, he was convinced of his own ability, he was convinced of his own strength, his own effort, his own status, he was convinced of all these things, and he saved no one. Do you realize that? He delivered no one. Samson the judge saved no one. He did not deliver Israel. He started a process that eventually David would finish. But he didn't do what Othniel did, and Ehud did, and Deborah did, and all the others. He was convinced of his own abilities to save no one. But the fortunate reality in this story is that God remained faithful despite that. And God still remains faithful. In fact, if you look in 2 Timothy 2:13, it says, if we are faithless, He remains faithful, for He cannot disown Himself. Psalm 86:15, but you, O Lord, are a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. Hebrews 10:23, let us hold fast the confession of our hope without wavering, for He who promised is faithful. This is the characteristic of God that we need to know. Is that it's not dependent on results and effort and strength on our part. It's dependent on God's faithfulness. Samson did nothing for the Spirit of God to come powerfully upon him. That was just God's kindness and faithfulness saying, yep, we're going to use you again. And see, the thing about it is when we think about this, when we hear this story, when we see it in this light, Samson may not be that hero that we grew up with anymore. And some of us, we may be looking at him like, I would have never chosen that guy. I would not want to end the story with him. Like, you always want to finish strong, you know? You want to put your best guys in at the end of the game. You don't want to put the scrubs in. That's why bench players hardly ever get to play in close games. You want the best ones in at the end. So when we're looking at this story, it's like, man, I would never have chosen Samson. I wouldn't finish the game off with him. The guy was a chump. He's a joke. He kind of ruined everything, and he did less than all the other guys. Couldn't we have just, switched them around where somebody had a little bit of success at the end? That's how I look at it. We would have never chosen him. I would have never chosen him, but God did. And that's our hope today, because maybe you feel like, man, it's impossible to turn around your life for Christ. Maybe you feel like God can't, or won't, or shouldn't use you. But He can, and He will, and He wants to. If you yield and allow Him to transform what matters most. I want to close just with this line from this old hymn. It says, turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in His wonderful face. And the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of His glory.